BuildAid is so proud to be part of this amazing, bustling city of gold. Come behind the scenes with us as we explore what really goes into the development, refurbishment and creation of this incredible city we call home. From past to present, we look at what makes Jersey unique and what the future holds.
BuildAid on Mix 93.8 FM. Good evening. My name's Graham Alexander. In the studio, as usual, Simon looking after the desk and Kay looking after all of us. I'm going to be chatting to Lloyd Chikamba from Bedson Timbers. We're going to be talking about wood, where it comes from, sustainable forests, and so on. And we also have our resident heritage expert, Dave Gurney, in the studio, talking about wooden floors in Joburg, Parktown, and other interesting places.
Okay, now because our bedraggled brothers and sisters in the mother city are experiencing a storm of note today, tonight's question is about a nightclub that opened in Jersey in 1986, and your clue about that nightclub is really heavy weather. And that's all I'm going to give you for now, but I'm sure you're going to get it right. And we've got this absolutely fabulous hardwood cutting board from Bedson to give away. And it is absolutely stunning. It's massive, hyperallergenic, and it's going to last you a lifetime probably. So if you know the answer to this club we're talking about, opened in 1986, I know Simon knows it, he jawed there for sure. Send us an SMS 41348.
I can't give you a clue because I have no idea which club it is.
Fabulous. We're not going to tell you what it is.
Okay, let's talk about timber. And my guest, Lloyd from Bedson Timbers. Lloyd, thanks for coming to chat to us.
Thanks for having me.
Just a quick overview of Bedson. Who are you guys? Are you an international company and so on? Where are you based?
So Bedson, we're based in Silverton. That's our head office. But we are an international company. We have, over the past 28 or so years, grown to 9 international branches in Africa and South America. Primarily what we focus on is the importation and manufacturing of solid wood products. Now with that, it's solid wood flooring, solid wood decking, and now we're just branching into solid wood doors, boards and chopping boards and such.
Solid wood is sometimes a sensitive issue when it comes to sustainable forests and so on. You guys are involved in a couple of forests. Where are they?
We are. So in Argentina and Uruguay, that's where we pretty much have our 2 main forests. From there we plant poplar. We take care of it from just as a seed all the way to harvesting, all the way to bringing it here in South Africa and then distributing it as a finished product. Everything we do in-house, from the machining to the staining of it and the supply.
Lloyd, you said poplar. It's a type of tree.
It is.
So what kind of wood comes out of that tree?
Well, it is a hardwood. It is a hardwood, similar to like birch. Birch would be the closest, similar product. But for that, you get, it's a multi-use product. You can use it for flooring. You can use it for furniture. But most people obviously look at the cost aspect of a lot of hardwood, and that's one really good alternative.
When you grow trees with the intention of cutting them down and making furniture, I suppose it's very different to cutting down a 500-old tree in some tropical forest.
Right.
So the hardwoods you're talking about, it's the farming of wood, if I could put it that way.
Pretty much, yeah.
Why don't you grow it in South Africa?
Firstly, the space. There isn't much space for forestry of that magnitude. Your second issue is obviously the climate. We know we have very harsh climates in Africa, so that tends to hinder the process somewhat. And I suppose the cost. It's relatively cheaper to do it elsewhere and then just bring it in here. Yeah.
One of the most common woods in South Africa, and it's not used as a solid wood, is South African pine, or sometimes referred to as SA pine.
Right.
Would that be classified as a softwood?
It's debatable. It's debatable because if you look at just the structure of it, it is it tends to be softer than your typical hardwood like teak and mahogany and that. But the applications are pretty much the same. It has a similar structural integrity as most hardwoods, so you can use it and in the same way as typical hardwoods. Yeah.
I know that pine is used in structural stuff like roofs and what have you, but very unusual to see it being used in flooring and so on.
Unusual is good because that's where we come in. But we try to give you, a wholesome experience. So we won't just say use one and that's it. We try to give you multiple options, and pine is one of those alternatives. If people are looking for a cost-effective material that won't break the bank, that they can stain and have the right finish, that's where we come in and provide that.
So Bedson, essentially you're bringing in wood,
right,
cutting it to size, and you supplying it to flooring companies and decking companies and so on. So you don't install the timber, you're a supplier of timber.
We are primarily just in the manufacturing and supply, but doesn't mean that we don't work with the installers or flooring companies. We do try to cover the gaps from both sides, from working with your architects, your interior designers, just from a specification perspective. We try to work with the homeowners, try to give them what they want, and we give support to the installers and contractors to give them products that they can actually use and support thereafter.
When we come back, Lloyd, I want to get into the flooring a bit more, try and understand solid timber flooring and the different types of wood that you guys supply. BuildAid on Mix. My name's Graham Alexander. I'm chatting to Dave Gurney and Lloyd Chikamba. And there's been a request from a couple of people. How do you get hold of these guys? Okay, you can get hold of Lloyd at betsonflooring.co.za and get hold of Dave. He's the guy that knows a lot more than he will admit, on Gurney at Global. That's his email address. That's how you get hold of them. If you can't, get hold of BuildAid and we will put you in touch with these guys. Well, we're talking about timber. Dave, buildings in Joburg, old buildings, they all have wood in them, and they probably have wooden windows as well. Are they protected? What's in these buildings?
Yeah, well, of course, some of the lovely older buildings with sash windows. There's a lot of buildings with these beautiful old sash windows as well. And Pretoria as well. Pretoria's got some beautiful, beautiful, lovely old buildings. One of the buildings in Joburg called The View, which is the family home of the Cullinans, quite close to the Joburg Hospital. It's a really magnificent building, and they had a timber balcony. And that recently had to be refurbished completely, rebuilt, in fact, because it had weathered very badly. So the kind of conservation work that goes on, there's a lot of it that goes on with special conservation architects that are involved. The Heritage Foundation, Flo Bird was very much involved in that. That's so that there's a lot of conservation that is going on in these old buildings, and there are firms that specialize in taking out and refurbishing windows and doors and that sort of thing and returning them.
So a company like Bedson, Lloyd, if they are refurbing or replacing a balcony like that, they're likely to replace it with a similar kind of wood and would probably be a hardwood. So this would be somewhere that a company like yours would get involved. Have you been involved with projects like that?
Not so much from making the structure, just from getting the wood to look the same or trying to make it look the same. We get a lot of requests when people have a plank from somewhere that they want us to match. And unfortunately we can never really match because wood has different characteristics. It can be from the exact same tree, but it will never look the same from one piece to the next. So we do try and give a solution which can work across the board, from your older planks to your newer planks. But in most cases it's just a case of refurbishing or sanding everything and then coating it again, with the same finish at once.
Yeah, it must be quite a challenge if you were talking about the hotel in Maboneng. If parts of the floorboards are gone, you don't want to pull the whole thing down. You want to go to Bedson and see, listen, guys, can you try and match this so we don't have to replace the whole thing?
Yes, it's amazing what can be done with firms like Bedson, because they have these wonderful technologies and the chemicals that will match up things quite amazingly. And it's quite important to try and get that. Of course, the guys the purists would really like to have the same kind of timber, whether you can find timber recycled from older buildings that match up, that type of thing. But otherwise, you can get Bedson's timbers that really can match up some fantastic old doors and architraves and skirtings and
window sills.
Yeah.
Dave, any building older than 60 years old is now protected. You're a heritage consultant. So if you're going to add or renovate your home, you need to go through a process, and you can obviously contact Dave to do that, because most of our homes now, if you live in Joburg, are going to become older than 60 years old. I just want to question on this, Dave. If it has a timber floor, like a good old Oregon pine floor, part of the protection of this building, can I take the floor out without getting approval?
When you prepare a permit application, it's called a Section 34 permit application. Ideally, you have to try and keep what's there to refurbish the house. But quite often people want to change a house, modernize it, that type of stuff. And so they quite often have something quite eclectic next to the house if it's not in the house. If it's in the house, it's very nice to try and match it up exactly. We think we're strict with 60 years. In England and Guernsey, buildings that are 500 years old, you still have to put the lead soakers on the roof and those kind of things. So it's lovely to try and match up as closely as possible with the original materials.
But through regulation, it's difficult to make a homeowner. If they want to take the floor out, you can't stop them.
Some houses have great heritage worthiness. It depends on who lived there. Is it a particular design that exhibits a stance? Was it culturally important? Architectural features that are important? Those type of things. So if there's quite an unique house, then of course you don't want to. But if it's quite a sort of older than 60 years, but there's lots of them around, that type of thing, then they're not too fussy about that.
So there is one building that we need to know about. Kay, what's the answer?
The answer is the Thunderdome. Well done, everyone who got it right. Now, winner tonight is Charmaine. You're so lucky. You're going to get this absolutely stunning hardwood cutting board. I'm really jealous because it's really beautiful. So well done, Charmaine. And thanks to Bedson, thanks to Lloyd for supplying it.
Thanks to the team in the studio. That's Pam, Ian, Simon, and Kay looking after all of us. Thanks for listening, and thanks so much to my guests, Lloyd and Dave. Lloyd, thank you for coming to chat to us.
Thanks for having me.
It was a pleasure.
There must be so much love in my heart that it would tear me apart. And I know, although you couldn't see, to hurt you. Queensbridge, you would only moan after you.